Today's lesson we'll be looking at AutoCAD. So what is AutoCAD? AutoCAD is a program used by professionals such as architects, architectural techs, industrial designers, engineers, whether it is civil, petrochemical, or mechanical. If you're even a designer, you just want to create something, you can definitely do it in AutoCAD. So from here, I've actually put in AutoCAD designs, and I'm just going to look at some of the images of some work that can be done. So for example, here's an example of an industrial part that's created, and you can translate it to 3 dimensions. Now, for the purpose of this course, we're not going to be working with a 3D feature, specifically because I don't particularly like it very much. It doesn't function very well. Other things that you can use with it is to create blueprints, like I said, if you're an architect, an architectural tech, and other parts. So think of it this way: if you can dream it, you can make it in AutoCAD so it can then go out for actual manufacturing and creation. So we're going to go ahead and actually launch AutoCAD. There's 2 ways of doing it. One, from your desktop, there should be an icon, or you can just go ahead and click on the Windows button and just start typing in AutoCAD. And we want the 2020 or earlier release if you cannot install 2020 or more current on your computer. And we'll just go with the English version. Okay, right from the beginning, you'll notice I have a very large Start Drawing button, and I plan to do that. So I'm going to click on this, and then pretty much here's my blank canvas from which to work on. Now, AutoCAD is designed where it has a whole bunch of different ribbons. For all intents and purposes, though, we're going to be using the Home button mostly for this course. And in particular for this video, you're going to notice that we have a bunch of drawing tools and a bunch of modifying tools. So we're going to kind of look at these, and you're going to go through them and experiment and try them out and see what works. So let's actually begin with the line tool. The line tool is exactly that. I can click, and then I can drop another line. Now if I'm finished, there's 2 ways of actually ending this line command. I can hit the ESC or escape key on my keyboard, or I can just simply go right-click and then enter. Now if I want to repeat the line, I can go all the way back over here and create the line, or I can just do a right-click and I can just repeat the last command, because AutoCAD is actually really good about remembering the last command. Now, in addition to line, we have something called polyline. Now, polyline and line are a little bit different, and see if you can notice what the difference is. So here I am, I've got a polyline, I'm going to right-click, enter, and finish it off. Okay, so I know that this is a line, this is a line, this is a line, and you can also notice right over here that this is a polyline. So I want you to think of what is the difference between a line and a polyline. So the difference between a line and a polyline is lines are individual segments. You'll notice that this is a segment, and they're actually individually connected together. I can also click and drag, and I can actually move this away from the existing line. All right, and to move it very, very simply, just click on it and just left-click and drag and place this anywhere on the canvas. Now, a polyline, they're all connected together, you'll notice. So yes, I can move it and they all move together. What I can also do with a polyline is I can grab these grips right over here and I can just sort of reshape it. Now, if I was to do that with a line and try reshaping it by grabbing one of the grips, you'll see it actually separates. So that's the difference between a line and a polyline. You're going to use them depending on what your needs are. Some people prefer polylines, some people just prefer lines, depending on the purpose of the design. Now you'll also notice that this is selected and this is selected. How do I know? Because they're illuminated in blue and they also have grips showing. So to unselect things, what I would do is I just hit the ESC or escape key on my keyboard, and you'll notice that it's all basically taken away all the sort of selection grips and options to grab things. So we've explored the line and the polyline tool. Now we're going to actually look at the circle tool. So with regards to the circle tool, pretty simple and straightforward. Click and drag and create a circle. Now you'll notice that I have this little numerical computation thing right over here. It's actually telling me what the radius of my circle is. So in fact, I can type a number in there if I want to, and I can actually create a radius with a specified value. So if I want to make this a radius of 5, I'm going to go 5, enter, and there it is. So the default unit of measurement in AutoCAD is actually in inches. So how big is an inch? 2.54 centimeters. Mostly when we work in this course, especially when it comes to blueprint design for, say, landscape architect or, say, blueprints for like a condo, we're going to be sticking with feet and inches because in North America, that's kind of the standard. It's the easiest to work with. In my opinion, you'll get used to it very, very quickly. Okay, so we've got the line tool, polyline tool, circle tool, and now we're going to mess around with the arc tool. So with regards to the arc tool, it just simply creates an arc. I left click to drop my first point. I left click again to create a second point, and now you can see that I can actually take my mouse and move this and bend this as I want to. Once I got the correct bends, I'm going to left click a third time to drop this on the canvas. And like anything else with the objects in AutoCAD, I can select it, move it, I can reselect it, I can actually grab some of the parameters and I can change it. And that's how I do the arc. If I want to bend it in a different direction, I'm just going to grab the middle grip and bend it like this. Okay, next tool, the rectangle tool. Rectangle tool, exactly what it stands for, it creates a rectangle. If you notice it has a little kind of diagonal line through here, this actually means it's actually a square, because of course a square can be a rectangle. So I can create rectangles, squares, and like anything else, I can go ahead and move this around the screen. In fact, I can even skew this if I want to. And just turn it into a parallelogram. Okay, next is the ellipse tool. So an ellipse tool creates an ellipse or oval. So each of these shapes behaves slightly different from the other, especially if you grab the grips. And it's a matter of playing around with it and kind of seeing what works and what doesn't in terms of actually working with that tool. So I'm going to pause the video right now, and I want you to do the same, and I want you to actually just go ahead and just play with the line, polygon, circle, and arc tool. When you're creating shapes, don't forget to actually select the shape itself and then try distorting it or moving it or turning it or something like that to kind of create a bit of an effect. So spend about 2 or 3 minutes doing that, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so we're back here, and the next thing that we're going to do in AutoCAD is actually talk about getting rid of objects on your screen. Now, there's lots of different ways of getting rid of objects on your canvas here. I can click on an object if I want to, and then looking down at my keyboard, I can hit the delete key. Okay, it's gone. Same thing over here. If I want to actually take out several objects, like that, and hit the delete key, I can do the same. Hitting the delete key can be a bit of a labor-intensive process though, so there is actually faster ways of getting rid of objects on your canvas. Now I'm just going to just use my scroll wheel on the zoom so I can kind of zoom out and see all the different objects so they're not kind of bleeding off the screen here. Now if I want, I can just left click and kind of go like this to select my objects. Then I can go right click, and then what I can do is I can actually just do a quick erase, and that will get rid of them. I just like using the delete key on my keyboard in any event. And they're gone. Now you'll notice something though. So I'll Control Z to put this back on the screen. You'll notice something though, but when I go like this, not all the objects are selected. So I want you to think for a moment, why are all the objects not selected in the blue sort of capture window like that? So the reason why the objects aren't selected is because when you're using a blue selection, you actually have to go all the way and engulf the entire object for it to get selected. Otherwise, it will not be selected on your screen. Now, if you don't like that option, you can actually use the green swipe select if you want. The green swipe select means that instead of starting from the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to go to the bottom right-hand corner. And you'll notice with this one here, all I have to be doing is just touching the object ever so slightly, and it's selected. So I don't have to engulf the entire object for it to work. So again, the difference is blue selection, and I'm just going to come over here and let me hit escape to deselect everything. And then I'm going to come all the way over here. It just has to be touching slightly, and then it's selected. So depending on, again, what you're working on, you might use a blue selection or you actually might use a green selection. One thing to avoid, and this is one feature of AutoCAD that drives me absolutely crazy, is if you left click and hold down, it does this weird selection. I'm not a big fan of it anyways. Okay, well, actually it did work pretty good. Okay, same thing if I come over here and I left click and I hold it down, you can see that it does some weird stuff. I don't like holding down the left mouse button. Sometimes it's just easier just left click, let go, and then just draw the objects. But again, I want you to play around with that and I want you to see what works for you, see how to actually delete or clear off your screen. So I'll give you a couple of moments to play around with that and we'll get back to you. Okay, so we're back here. Now the next function that we're going to explore in AutoCAD is the hatching function. So what is the hatching function? Hatching function allows me to actually create a fill. And that fill might be based on a gradient, a pattern, a solid color. And so you have lots of different choices in that respect. So fills only work with closed objects. So for example, if I have a circle here, a rectangle here, and an arc here, the only way that the fill is going to work is actually on the circle and the rectangle. So to use hatching, I'm going to go over here to the hatching button, click on it, and then my entire console kind of changes. So you do have solid colors, you do have patterns. You also have lots of other different patterns that you can actually work with. So say you're a civil engineer and you need to actually show brick or earth or something like that, you actually have different options. So here's one for concrete. So I can actually fill this with concrete. Now once I'm finished with the hatching, I have to close the hatching off. That way I can have one different type of hatching here and a different type of hatching over here. So going over, I'm going to click on the hatching button again. This time I'm going to go with a solid color. And there it is. Don't like that color so much though. So instead I'm going to actually change that color and we're going to go with a different one. Now you'll notice that I have a fill color, but I also have an outline color too. So I can actually change that if I need to. Alright, so let's close hatching now. So if you also recall, hatching does not work on shapes that are not fully enclosed. So for example, I've got an arc right over here. If I want to try hatching this, it's simply not going to work because it can't determine a closed boundary. Okay, no problem. So let's just close off the hatching editor here. So instead what I might do here with the hatching is instead I'm going to use my polyline. So I'm just going to just draw a series of points and just like that. Now you'll also notice that I have a bit of a gap right over here. Let's see if the hatching works or doesn't. So there's hatching. Let's try something. And again, it cannot find a closed boundary. So in fact, when you're actually working with hatching, one of the things I need to do is I probably need to go ahead and select an object, and I'm just going to go ahead and just try connecting these together. Okay, so that's all connected now. Now let's see if I can rehatch that. And you can see that, in fact, I have a pattern. I might not like the color, so I can actually change that. I might put in a different sort of fill in there with a different line at the same time. Now something to remember when you're working with hatchings, and this is probably the #1 reason why AutoCAD crashes, is because your hatching is way, way too intense and too packed in. So right over here I've got my hatching size. So with regards to my hatching size, I can actually make it a lot smaller, and then all of a sudden it's so small it looks like a solid color. So if you notice yourself using hatching later on in AutoCAD and it looks like a solid color and doesn't actually look like a pattern that you've established, you're going to have to definitely increase the hatching size. So I'm just going to numerically change this to 10, and you're going to see how much larger the hatching is. So something definitely to keep in mind, because I have students all the time that use hatching and they can't see the pattern, and then the end result is they have so many different hatchings that it crashes the computer. So what I need you to do is spend a few minutes, pause the video, play around with the different hatching. Remember too that you can also add gradients if you want to. So let me go over here, back into hatching, and that's definitely an option to actually grab a gradient. And so now you can see how I have a different gradient, and you can play with the different types of gradients and different colors. So go ahead, I'll get back to you, and then we'll go to the next step, which is actually exploring some of these commands. Okay, so we're almost done this lesson with just basic AutoCAD tools. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and explore the move command, the rotate, and also the copy. So we know that if you want to actually move an object, you can actually just grab it by the edge, and we can actually just move it right off to the side. Sometimes that doesn't quite work though, and the reason why that doesn't is because we need to actually move it by the corner so we can actually fit it between two lines or fit it into a particular section. So we're going to use the move command for this. So right here where the move is, I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to get a series of prompts. So right now it says select objects. So I have to select the object or objects if I have more than one. So I just want to move this one, so I'm just going to click on this. Next I'm going to go right click to advance the step. Now I want to specify a base point. So my base point is going to maybe be right over here, and I'm going to click on that. So now I'm actually clicking and dragging this and moving this. And if this object needs to attach perfectly on the corner here, that's why I've used this particular move command. So one more time, let's try this. I'm going to click on the move, select the object, and I want to right click to advance. I'm going to specify now this base point right over here, and I'm going to move this, and it's going to attach to the corner of this object right here. I'm going to click one more time to release the object, and it's being moved. Copying is very, very similar to moving, and it's the same sort of progression, the same sort of steps. So I'm going to take this object right here, and I actually want to copy it. To do so, click on the copy button. I want to grab the object by clicking on it, and then right-clicking to advance. Again, I want to specify a base point, which is right here, and now you'll notice that I can continually copy the objects. I have these really cool kind of guides that help me kind of line everything up nicely. Once I'm finished and I have enough copies, I'm going to right-click and then enter, and it's done. You will notice though when you copy an object, the hatching does not copy along with it. You'll have to do that on your own. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you is how to rotate an object. And again, it follows very much the same object as move and copy. To rotate an object, click on the rotate button, select an object, right-click to advance, specify a base point. Now when I specify a base point, it's going to rotate from this as a pivot point. So now you can see that I can actually take my mouse and manually move it, just like that. I can even specify, say, like a number of degrees. So if I want to actually rotate this 90 degrees, I'm going to look at my keypad, type in 90, and then hit enter, and there it is. It's fully rotated 90 degrees. So now what I'd like you to do is I want you to go ahead and play with the copy, move, and rotate commands with just very, very basic objects. In doing so, get comfortable with the program to a point where it becomes second nature for you. Now, I know there's a lot of different ways of doing things in AutoCAD. These are just suggested ways of doing it. I know some people who are so hardcore when it comes to using AutoCAD, they actually use this console and they actually learn what the commands are. So for example, if I wanted to actually type in, say, copy, okay, it actually tells me to select the objects. Not a big fan of the console, that's just me though, but everybody has a different preferred learning preference. So go ahead and take a few minutes to play around with the move, copy, and rotate button. And then from there, we're going to give you a short task to work on. Okay, so we're back here now, and I'm going to give you a short task to work on. So I'm just going to select everything I've got here on this canvas, hit the delete key. Now, I'm going to zoom in using my mouse wheel, and you'll also notice that I'm panning. All I'm just doing is holding down on the middle mouse button and just basically moving it back and forth and rocking it to sort of pan through the screen. To conclude this lesson, I'm going to give you a short task to work on. Going on the internet and typing in Jasper Place logo, what I'd like you to do is grab a logo, right-click, copy image. Going back into AutoCAD, you can go Control-V to paste, or you can simply go right-click, clipboard, and then paste. Now, using all the tools that you learn, I want you to recreate this logo. If you think you're really pro and you're awesome at this program, I'll give you more of a challenging task. Let's grab the redhead character, right-click, and grab this image. And we're going to do the same thing in AutoCAD and go Control-V to paste. and try to recreate that with the hatchings, different polyline tools, or even different curves. So that concludes the lesson. In this lesson, what you did is learn the line tool, polyline, circle, arc, rectangle, ellipse, hatching, as well as the move, rotate, and copy tool. So the more that you use this program, the better you're going to get at it. So have fun with the program. And that's it for now.